You're welcome back to The Big Issue. We are live from our studios at number 11, Dr. Martin Loop in Adabraka in Accra. We are on Citi TV and we are on Citi FM 97.3 FM as well. We've been discussing about three matters on the plate today. One is what happened in Parliament yesterday and the days before, the determination of who constituted the majority side in the House, the Speaker's speech, etc. After this, we'll look at the courts, the Supreme Court and the presidential election petition, and perhaps the parliamentary seats. We'll also look at the reopening of schools. Schools officially reopened yesterday. What's been your experience? What did your children or your kids tell you about school yesterday, where the protocols, COVID-19 protocols, adhered to? We are taking your views and your comments via WhatsApp on 0549 986 996. My guest this morning, Dr. John Kuma, MP for Ejiso, for the MPP side, Al Hassan Suhini, MP for Tamale North. MP for Tamale North, apologies, for the NDC, and then Franklin Kujo, President Imani Africa, and then we have Dr. Rashid Dramani, Executive Director of African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Franklin Kujo and Dr. Dramani are joining us via Zoom. And so, John Kuma, Honorable and Doctor, I'm coming back to you again. We had a very good speech yesterday. A lot of people have said from the Right Honorable, very good speech, like Franklin Kujo rightly said. He said it was positively autocratic. Quite some strong words coming from the Speaker that he does not intend his parliament to be a rubber stamp parliament or an obstructionist parliament. And he appeared to have struck the right chords with many people. What's your general impression on that? I know you have a few points to make, but what's your general impression on that?
I think just a few points to make, because I should not be seen to be dwelling on some of these things, especially when Franklin Kujo and Dr. Dramani have said we should be seen to be graceful in our conduct and be seen to be coming together. But except that we must always keep to the facts as much as possible. When the clerk did not announce figures, only to hear that, to be surprised by the announcement from the Speaker that he had 138, it kind of took us side by surprise, because there's a reason why we count votes of every candidate in elections. Sometimes, even after the sorting, whilst you are counting, you can find out that some other votes have gone into another group of sorted votes. So there's a reason why there was no agreement on the votes and the numbers, and I think it even serves us better that we agreed that we give you the Speaker, you give us the two deputies, just to make sure that on the night there was a tension and there was pressure, and we needed to swear in the president. So,
but I don't have the two deputies. One is independent.
Well, he's part of our group, so we see him as part of us, and it was part of the.
At the time,
so we will tell you that it was part of the negotiation. That yes, even though they tabled him to be elected, it was part of the arrangement that we will give you the Speaker and then we will take the two deputies. And we want all understanding to reflect that we both sides, the NDC side or the minority league group and the majority group, came together to say that we are giving speakership to Mr. Bagben or Honorable Bagben, and then the two deputies at the time will go to the majority side. So I think we must reflect that consensus from day one and not try to change it along the way. And then also the comment he made that they tricked the MPP to be there at 3 a.m. Look, if they claim they came there at 8 p.m., at what time did we go to have meeting to be there at 3 a.m.? We had our game plan right from
but I'm sure you have a WhatsApp group. That information you put there.
No, but so WhatsApp group you think can wake up MPs from wherever they are to come there. Please, they should take us seriously.
Okay.
Just as they want us to respect them, they should also give us respect and not trivialize our strategies. On the 7th years, we concede that they beat us to the game. But on the 15th, they must also concede that we also achieved our set targets through whatever strategy we adopted. And I cannot believe that he says that the MPP and Nana Addo doesn't concede to defeat. I'm very surprised. The NDC is in court today, having lost by over 517,000 votes. And Nana Akufo-Addo in 2008 he lost by less than 50,000 votes. In fact, 40-something thousand. Before time, it was 27,000. And after time, I think it increased to 42,000, or I don't have the exact figure. And Nana Akufo-Addo conceded.
In 2008?
Yes. He conceded. He didn't go to court. After time, less than 50,000 votes. My constituency alone, I won by 69,800. So one constituency recount alone, if you had even asked for recounting, and we're in government. So I am very surprised that Suhuyini of all people.
But as a matter of record, did he concede apart from the conduct of
in 2008
swearing in of Professor Mills?
Yes.
Apart from that conduct,
yes,
did he concede? We have that on record.
Yes, it's on record. He congratulated Professor Mills.
He did not.
Please.
All right. But
in 2008,
yes.
He did not.
Professor Mills was congratulated by candidate Akufo-Addo.
He did not.
He did.
Very well.
And in any case, even if he did not, he said the NPP, Nana Akufo-Addo led NPP. That's what he's saying. And I'm saying that in 2008, Nana Akufo-Addo was leading the NPP.
Yes.
We gave power to the NDC.
President Kufuor.
Having lost less than 50,000, even in America. Look at Trump, having lost over 7 million votes, he is still fighting the system. But in Ghana, less than 50,000 votes. Nana Akufo-Addo has shown himself to be one of the most democratic and transparent leaders that we can have in this country. And it is unfair for people who are contesting 500,000 loss to tell him, who lost by less than 50,000 votes, that he refused to accept defeat.
So let's make progress.
Now, progress. I think that yesterday the speaker's speech was.
So see your tone your tone is not very honorable.
Yeah, well, it's always honorable. It's also honorable to disagree.
Yes.
So let's not belabor the point that we always agree. When we have to agree, we agree. When we don't have to agree, we will talk. Yes, yesterday's speech by the speaker was one of the best speeches that we heard. Obviously, the speaker came through the support of the minority group, but I can say that yesterday he made it clear to all sides that he was not going to be an MPP speaker or NDC speaker. And at a point, I remember when in the course of his speech, the NDC, the minority group will start jubilating and cheering him on. Then at a point it will reverse, and then we in the majority side will be cheering him on. It means that he was speaking to all sides of the chambers. And then when he finally ruled on the majority group and minority group, you saw the excitement and even the singing on the part of the majority. We started calling him Father, because the NDC, when they want to give him fans, they call him Father. At the point it turned, and then we were giving him fans, Father. So he's not just saying it. At least from his first sitting, he proved to be a neutral leader who will speak or lead the House based on his years worth of experience, based on his own understanding of the standing orders, based on the laws and rules of Parliament. And even, I'm not surprised, because from day one, the very day that he gave his acceptance speech, he said that members who don't know their standing orders, he's only giving 3 months grace period. After which, if you are standing up to talk, you must quote your standing orders upon which you are speaking, and you must be conversant with the rules of Parliament. And I think that he has shown clearly from day one that he wants to work with the rules. He gave clear indication of how the 8th Parliament will work. We are not going to be a rubber stamp Parliament, and we are not going to be an obstructionist Parliament. For me, that's the best for this country. And it doesn't matter that my government is in power. We must all do things right for posterity and for the good governance of Ghana. So if he's indicating that don't come rushing in to get things done, let's do things properly and check our history. Even from the first Republican Constitution, 1st July 1960, to the second Republican, the 69 to 72 one that brought Buzia, to the third Republican, the Liman one from 1979 to 81. And then from 1992 to date, the fourth Republican. You realize that all works of Parliament have been built on consensus And even though we sometimes have heated arguments about NDC and MPP, check the records of controversial bills that get passed in this country, whether it's an MPP government or NDC government. It doesn't even see the light of day. I still remember, I was in law school, I still remember the controversial STS deal, where they kept Parliament till midnight or late night hour to pass that we were bringing some $3 billion from China to build houses for police in this country.
Was it South Korea? I think
it was from China.
I think STS was South Korea.
South Korea.
I remember some billions of dollars. It became an issue. And you remember the saloon loan, the CNTCR loan, what became of it? It never came under President Kufuor. It never came. STS deal, it never came. And you realize that all the
Sino-Hydro.
And Sino-Hydro, Sino-Hydro is working. Why haven't you seen the interchange in Tamale?
Oh, check
it's
it.
working, please,
careful.
That one.
Check it.
No, but that's
why I'm asking him whether he hasn't seen it.
Okay.
That one, Sino-Hydro
hasn't come.
is working, please.
Okay.
That one is working. We've seen the rows. So clearly, sometimes some of the controversial bills end up not helping the country, or we not seeing the benefits of all the controversies that came around it.
But Sino-Hydro is helping, like you just said.
Oh yes, that we have seen the roles.
Okay.
Sino-Hydro came, and that's what I'm pointing at least.
I hate to interject, but you see, even the Chinese CDB loan, even though it didn't come, the projects that they were supposed to have,
projects happened.
The projects were ongoing, and some of them have been completed. And I'm telling you on authority that Sino-Hydro projects, some of them may be ongoing, but the money hasn't come.
So the money, the funding is not from Sino-Hydro.
The funding is not. I think less than 1% of the funds has so far been released since.
Wow.
Okay. You should check.
So we'll check that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's only adding to what I'm saying. It doesn't matter whether it was
so your point is that the controversies surrounding passage of certain agreements, etc., haven't really
helped us
because the deals themselves haven't really
with
happened.
benefit of hindsight. Yeah. The results from such controversies turn out to be true, that indeed we should have agreed to the objections that were raised. You get it? I mean, speaking as a patriotic citizen. So I don't see why Suhuyini will object to anything positive that a government is bringing. It is also going to help his constituency and help my constituency in Ejuso. And I am happy to say that in all parliaments of Ghana, that's what I've referred right from the first Republican parliament till today, we have agreed almost 95% on issues. Yeah, few things come to become controversial. So I don't have any difficulty or doubt, and I having worked with and known His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He is one person who is so passionate about goodness for Ghana, and he is going to work with the current parliament to ensure that what we eventually push through will be something that will be good for the country, that will bring good results, and that is what the population has voted for. Ghanaians gave 137 to the NDC, 137 to NPP, and 1 independent because they are sick and tired of NDC, NPP issues all the time, and things that we can easily agree, we don't agree because we have the numbers. Now, we cannot say we have the numbers. Like the minority leader rightly stated yesterday, if you check certain articles of the Constitution, it's not all matters that you require just simple majority. On some matters, you need to have overwhelming majority or 2/3 or sometimes more than three quarters in order to agree. So we should have 100% both sides agreeing. This is how we want to see our country run.
Very well.
And we are happy to have a country I'm happy to be part of a parliament that is going to ensure that I consult my friends on the other side. They also consult us on the other side, and we work together. We are already friends, even. In fact, when we are not debating, we are very good friends. Whenever I'm in Tamale and I see Suhuyini, I chase him and he chases me.
Wow.
We are friends. When he comes to Ejuso and he doesn't call me, he'll be in trouble. So that is who we are. We are one people, and our disagreements must be seen in the picture as part of our democracy, that we cannot always agree. Sometimes we will disagree, and no matter the extent of the disagreement, we will finally talk and agree, and then we'll push this country forward.
Very well. So in the spirit of consensus, of course, you are not in the mind of the president. But you think this president will be minded to throw a few appointments the way of the NDC to reflect that spirit he's spoken about himself?
That one we have
that
tried.
One will not happen.
Well, I don't know his mind, but I'm not foreseeing any appointment going to an NDC because not only about the president, but also about the
party won't agree.
Yeah, we have tried that with Mr. Adonoo, and we thought that it didn't go well, even though it was a good attempt. In fact, if you have checked, almost all MPP governments try to bring in people from the opposite side. You remember Dr. Ndum. We also helped.
But Dr. Ndum was as a result of the alliance which gave President Kufuor his first term.
That is true. And then you also remember Amidou and the rest. But as far as this particular government is concerned, I am not getting that indication yet that we are going to have to give appointments to NDC. In fact, we should allow NDC to give a very solid opposition. That is how we can build good policies. Also, you are looking for executive appointment. Be there, be in opposition, enjoy it. We have been there, and you should also be there and check us so that we can give a better Ghana to the country.
So better Ghana sounds different.
That is not to copy Professor Jones.
Honorable Suhuyini, many have said that NDC will expect to own Speaker Bagbin, but yesterday he said clearly that he was not an NDC speaker, neither is he an MPP speaker. He's the Speaker of Ghana's Parliament. I don't know how those words or those comments sit with your side, and the fact that he will not be an obstructionist, he will not oversee an obstructionist parliament. Many people have said that given that the president is from a different party and the speaker also is from another party, a lot of bills and agreements, even budgets will be thrown away, etc. What do you make of his speech, contextualizing it in what we have just said in respect of throwing it away? I'm not an NDC speaker, etc. Does it make your side a bit worried that he may not, after all, be what you guys expect him to be?
No, that's why we nominated, supported, and fought for him to be speaker. I'll come to expand that further, but I just needed to address some few residual matters from our earlier conversation. I think that anybody who followed the 2008 general elections, and I followed it, I covered it, and that was part of it, and there is no record of Nana Akufo-Addo conceding defeat and congratulating Professor Mills. Indeed, at a point, it was so bad that the President of the Republic then, who was the leader of the New Patriotic Party, President Kufuor, had to issue a statement to encourage the Electoral Commission to declare the winner so he could use the power and the authority of government to ensure that the winner was supported. You remember the attempt to serve an injunction on the Electoral Commission by the Nana Akufo-Addo-led MPP so that they could not declare the result. So let us not try to, change the history of this country. And so when I speak of the Nana Akufo-Addo-led MPP government never willing to concede defeat in any contest, it is backed by the facts as I have personally experienced in the course of my work. And that is why I think that we should not, especially when we are talking about the need to build consensus, belittle the achievements that our parliament chalked on the 6th and on the 7th by the collective actions that we all took to ensure that a speaker who was not anticipated by the governing party, emerged. We should not belittle that achievement by saying that it was just on consensus. Look, it is a very big achievement for all of us lovers of democracy that on the 9th, when it mattered most, the votes that the people of Ghana gave us was used to achieve something remarkable. Something that will ensure that no one party has total control of the executive arm or the legislature. So let us not belittle it by saying we sat in a room and decided that Bagbin should become speaker. That is not what happened. What happened was that an election was done, and maybe on the events of the 9th also, it's important that we are fair to the issues that happened. You had one group of people who may have excessively, and I'm using excessively, I agree that some of their actions may have been in excess, who may have excessively defended the need for the right thing to be done. Maybe they may have done it excessively, but they did it to ensure that the right things were done. So you had one group that may have gone overboard in their defense for the right thing to be done. And then another group that was determined not to allow the right things to be done, like secret voting. Because the secret voting is what is required by the law. So you had a group that went, perhaps in some cases, overboard to defend the right for people to do the right thing or to insist that the right thing be done. And I think that should be expected of every citizen, because we are enjoined to defend the Constitution even with our lives. And so we should situate the events of the SIF in the context of ensuring that the right things and processes and procedures are done. It is in that context that we will know what acts or which acts should be condemned and which acts perhaps should be moderated.
Very well.
Now, so having said this, I'd like to look at, and you see, maybe just the last one, we should not let people profit from their crime. I mean, when we debate the issue of the election and whether he was elected or not, we are giving the impression that you can be as reckless as whatever, the end will justify the means. I don't think that is good. People should not be encouraged to profit from their crime. But Bagwin's speech was brilliant. Right Honorable Speaker, Bagwin's speech was brilliant. I mean, some of us have known him for a very long time. In fact, he has been my political mentor for a very long time. My first interaction with him was when I was a student leader, and out of curiosity, I visited the House of Parliament in 2002 and got enamored by his presentation on the floor, and I sought audience with him, and he was super with the way he received me, shared with me some literature, which have always been part of my literature even till today. And he is the embodiment of Parliament as it stands today. The longest serving member of Parliament, has served in almost every important role in the House. Majority leader, minority leader, in government and in opposition. He's seen it all. So some of us knew that at this juncture, where we have equal numbers in the House, there will be the need to choose somebody who will lead the House, not to be a rubber stamp, and also not to be, a tool of obstruction when it comes to government business. And he was just the man. And that is why it is important that we do not belittle the sacrifice, because I call it sacrifice, that some of the New Patriotic Party members of Parliament made in voting for Honorable Bagwin. That should be commended, that should be encouraged, because they did the right thing for not just the Parliament of Ghana, but for our democracy in general. They did the right thing. And so let us not belittle that sacrifice they made to abandon their party choice and to go with the NDC choice. I believe that they were very convinced in their mind that the NDC choice was going to serve Parliament and the country better. And so we didn't expect anything less from Right Honourable Speaker Bagwin when he addressed the House yesterday and made it clear that he was not going to be an NDC speaker and he was not going to be an NPP speaker. Because you see, what we have is a unique situation. Never before have we had such a composition of Parliament in our Fourth Republic. I dare say in our politics in this country. And so we are going to need, we are going to establish new conventions. And he was brilliant when he addressed the issue of majority. Because you see, it remains a contentious issue. Because the composition of Parliament as we have it now, perhaps was never anticipated by the drafters of our standing orders and even maybe our Constitution. So we are in a new territory, and so we have to be sober and reflective in dealing with, situations when they come up. As we speak, by the outcome of the December 7 elections, what we have in the House are three caucuses. You have the MPP caucus, you have the NDC caucus, and then you have the independent caucus of one.
A caucus of one.
So there are three caucuses. Now, among these three caucuses, apart from perhaps the MPP and the NDC, there's no majority. You have a caucus of one, you have a caucus of 137, and another caucus of 137. So NDC cannot claim majority. MPP as a party cannot claim majority. That is a unique situation. In the past, what we used to have was that one party will have majority number of seats, another party will have minority number of seats. So the alliance of independent candidates or political parties did not change the character of the caucus. I hope you get the point I'm making.
Yes.
So, for example, if NPP had 169 and NDC had, say, 105, and an independent candidate joined the 169 caucus, it did not change the character of the caucus. It remained majority. If the independent joined the 106, it did not change the character of the NDC because it will remain minority anyway.
But the matter, I think, is become contentious because of the numbers. Yes.
So now, the character of the caucuses can change by virtue of one joining the other. And that is why I say Right Honorable Speaker Bagwin was spot on when he said it's a majority group. Because when it comes to the MPP caucus, it is not majority. But when the independent joins it, it changes its character. But in the past, it wouldn't have changed its character if they had, for example, 150 and he joined it, it wouldn't have changed its character. And that is why perhaps we have an opportunity in the attempt to do new standing orders to address some of these things that we have identified about the outcome of the 7th December election. So as we speak now, I think that he was able to bring peace to the House by the speech and by the conduct, and has gotten the buy-in of everybody for us to move forward. Now, the other thing that is a sticky point is the composition of committees in Parliament and how the numbers will reflect that composition. On our part, we are saying that
it should be 50-50.
It should be 50-50.
But how is it 50-50 when you have odd numbers on certain committees, 25, for example, for finance committee? How would that play out?
So that is where, again, you will need to speak to each other. You have to build consensus to, trade among yourselves. So in some committees where it is, you don't have one committee having an odd number. So in one committee where you have an odd number, the NPP may have just one more. And then in another committee where it's an odd number, the NDC can have one more. Because by the ratios, it is 50-50, even if you add the independent candidate to the MPP. By the ratio, it's still 50-50. Because you cannot have half a human being. So you have 50 points.
What's the conversation and what signals are you picking from the side which has the executive?
That is where we have a problem. From the side, and I think our leader communicated it even before yesterday, that we were going to insist that it is done on the basis of 50-50. In fact, as at yesterday when we were rising, when the committee that will compose the committees, the committee of selection was announced, this matter was raised.
And
we got the understanding.
NPP had 10.
Yes, plus Bagwin as speaker, who is supposed to chair. Yes, who is supposed to chair. And so the question was asked if this formula, that formula that was used for the selection, was just for the selection, or that was what was going to apply to all committees. And the assurance was given, and I hope again that people will not renege on it. The assurance was given by Honorable Chairman Sir that the composition was just for the selection committee, and that the 50-50 will apply when we are going to do the selection, and that is what we expect to happen.
So what you're saying is that there should be instances where, of course, apart from the public accounts, etc., there should be instances where your side should also chair some of the committees.
That is our expectation, and we also even concede that there are some committees by the fact that we are not forming government, we will not fight to chair. That's how reasonable we want to get.
And that will include the finance committee.
That will include the finance committee, that will include foreign affairs committee, defense and others. We concede that if our party currently, until the Supreme Court decision, is not constituting government, then we will not be fair if we insist to chair those committees. So our expectation is that we will our leadership will talk to each other more, and consensus building will be the order of the day. And at the end of it all, we will utilize the numbers to the benefit of Ghanaians, because they actually gave us these numbers so that they can force us to work together. And I think that we should not disappoint the people of Ghana by insisting that we will do, our politics the way we have always done it in the past, in a way to say that we are in government and we always have our way and the minority will have their say. That is not going to happen, and that shouldn't happen, because if it does, it will be very, very disappointing to the people of Ghana.
Very
now,
are you concluding?
Oh, yes, I'm just. Well, maybe you can proceed.
So
yes.
Let me take a few messages. Your messages have been coming in. This one from BKG from Donasu in Ejisu, that's Honorable's constituency. Good morning, Selorm. I love the submission of Dr. John Apontua-Kuma. No doubt he'll be a fantastic legislator. I'm sure that's one of your people. Political planner, he calls himself. Ayu Farouk in Tamale North says, so that's for a good morning to you all. Why is MPP always manipulating the judicial? No, I don't know. Now our democracy is in shambles, you claim. Good morning, my name is Gideon and I am watching you live from Ablekuma. The issue about the composition of caucuses in Parliament is clearly stated in the standing orders, which says the membership of the House shall be divided in two caucuses, minority and majority. It further says that the party or parties with the largest number of seats in the House constitute the majority caucus, whereas the minority covers the rest. You say, such rep from Power T region says yesterday's declaration by the Speaker settled the debate of who the majority is in the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic. Congratulations to both sides, especially the majority. Sir Awuku in Suboy says that this brouhaha over who forms majority or minority in Parliament is now settled, and this is 138, 136 plus 1 spot ballot discussion is needless, and referring to the Speaker election. And I think we should move on and see how to make Parliament productive to benefit the ordinary Ghanaian. That is Awuku in Suboy. Kweku in La Paz says, can the MPP man define the meaning of consensus? If Honorable Atachia said they would fish the betrayers and some of them are going to Antoine Nyama, will he call that as consensus building? Well, Babamu from Tamale says, congratulations again to the Right Honorable Speaker Babin. The anticipated dust has really settled down. The MPP remains majority group in the 8th Parliament. Okay. All right. So a number of them. So let me come to you, Dr. Rashid. Were you surprised, or did you actually expect the Speaker to have made some definitive statements on the happenings on the floor, the ballot paper snatching, and then the so-called invasion of the military of the House, military in the House? He made just passing comments and said it was despicable, etc. Others have said that we should see a committee or a strong signal from him on what the way forward for that will be. What do you think about that? And then generally, what to make of his address yesterday?
Selorm, I think, I have been one of those who has said that, as a country, we really need to move on and not focus on trying to sanction or punish those who were behind some of the happenings on January 7, at a time when we need the two sides to really come together And I say this because, in the days leading up to January 7, when the front bench of the then minority was being charged for marching to the Electoral Commission and so on without the necessary, police, public order, permissions and so on. I said at the time that, look, charging Honorable Aruna, Honorable Muntaka, and Honorable Abeji, three key individuals together with their colleagues who will be needed to sit around the table and negotiate with the other side was not smart on the part of our security agencies and so on. So I believe, perhaps in that spirit, that's why the Right Honorable Speaker just made a passing comment on that. Of course, he clearly indicated that, under his watch, that kind of thing is never going to happen again and so on. Some lessons will need to be learned, but I believe in the spirit of uniting the two sides, in the spirit of getting our country to move forward. Yes, sometimes laws are broken, but when lawyers are looking at issues, often some common sense is also applied. It's not only the law that's applied, the mood of the nation is taken into account. Now, let me come to the speech of the Right Honorable Speaker. I picked about 4 or 5 key issues. But before I get to that, I wanted to, Selorm, if you allow me, comment on the division of the committees. I don't think the leader of the MPP group, the Honorable Osechi Mensah-Bonsu, is against, sharing power and sharing these committees in Parliament. I say this on record because, he and I have had so many discussions following, experiences that we've had in some countries, particularly in the East African region, where on some visits, we saw how in those countries like in Kenya, in Tanzania, and other places, apart from the Public Accounts Committee of those parliaments, there are other oversight committees, the leadership of which were reserved for parties that did not constitute government. So, I think I don't think that he's averse to this. I don't know what his caucus thinks about this and so on. So I believe with a lot of dialogue, they would get through this and have perhaps the 8 standing committees split right in the middle, and then also maybe the membership of those committees. Again, I think it's if we look at what we have right now before us, and the fact that we still have the revision of the standing orders still pending, the leaders would really be minded in looking very carefully at maybe even things that we cannot imagine right now, and try to factor those in as we go about revising the standing orders. In some parliaments that I have seen around the world, they have a committee of the future, and the role of this committee is to sit down without any clear mandate, as with other standing committees, is to sit down and just imagine possibilities into the future, 20, 30 years into the future, and try to fashion out the standing orders and the country's laws, to be able to be prepared for these. And I believe perhaps maybe this is the time for us to begin thinking about maybe having something like this, because if a few months ago somebody said that we were going to have a split parliament, many people would say that was not possible in our country. Now, coming to the speech of the Right Honorable Speaker, let me just quickly say, I mean, I heard a couple of things that struck me. Number one, I think is his emphasis on the independence of the office of the Speaker, and by extension, the independence of Parliament. And I don't take this lightly. I think he really meant what he said, and he quoted lines from the oath of office that he took, and so on and so forth. And knowing him, and knowing that there have been instances in the past when he stood up even against his party, I believe this is something that he really meant. The second, I think, is the strict adherence to the rules and the standing orders. This is a speaker in the Fourth Republic whose every statement and every ruling will be watched very, very, very carefully and scrutinized more than any other speaker. And I think he made it very clear he's going to stick to the rules. And then he enjoined all the members, particularly maybe the new entrants, to ensure that they really learn the ropes and understand clearly the standing orders. Then the other important thing that I heard is, I mean, what has been said already about the fact that no rubber stamping and no obstruction. Selorm, in the life of every parliamentarian, there is something we call the legislator's dilemma. When our honorable members, I mean, in Ghana and across the world, when they are called upon to vote on issues, they face a number of dilemmas. I mean, are they voting for the nation? Are they voting for the people that send them to parliament? Or are they voting, for some parochial interest? Are they voting for some party interest, just simply towing the party line, whether it's good for the nation or not? At the end of it all, I mean, research has shown that in most instances, MPs really do not take the interests of the people who send them to parliament at heart. In most instances, I'm not saying in all instances. That's what research is showing, that they vote not their conscience, not in the interest of the people that send them to parliament, but rather party, some powerful president, and so on and so forth. And Honorable Bagwin has made it very, very clear that we are not going to see that in this eighth parliament. And I hope the numbers will bear him out, and then I hope that the two sides recognize the fact that Ghanaians are tired of the simple yes or no and so on, because we have the numbers in the house. And Selorm, by extension, he also emphasized the fact that those who are going to be called upon to be members of the executive, over the years we've seen a lot of divided attention, and in most instances the attention is more skewed towards the executive work than the legislative work. I mean, both in terms of oversight and in terms of representation, because we've seen a lot of empty chambers over the years. I mean, because many MPs claim they were doing ministerial business and so on and so forth. I think he sent a very clear message that, it's important that Parliament and parliamentary business should not suffer because people are going to be called upon to be ministers of state.
Yes, I was wondering how he was going to insist on that, because if you're a minister and by operation of the Constitution, I mean, majority of ministers should come from Parliament, and you have an executive job to do, I'm wondering how he's going to insist that they should not do so to the neglect of Parliament. I was wondering how he was going to enforce that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. He has been there before, Selorm. I mean, he has been a minister before, and at the same time, he discharged his legislative duties very creditably. So I believe he has a strategy. I mean, one way perhaps is to take a second look at the sitting hours of Parliament, because most government business usually is done in the mornings. Parliament sits from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Sometimes, ministers are taken away because of their responsibilities and so on. In some parliaments, they sit in the afternoons. I mean, maybe up into the night. There's nothing that stops our parliament from doing that, given the constitutionally induced marriage that we have. Now, Selorm, my last point, which I want to, is not related to the Right Honourable Speaker's speech, but I think one of our panelists talked about the fact that there are a number of issues that don't require just a simple majority to get them passed. Look, I think we need to take a serious look at how issues are voted upon in Parliament. We commit generations yet unborn to very heavy debts in our country, and when these matters come before the House, usually it's just by simple majority. I think issues like some of the international agreements, I mean, not all, some very important issues, I mean, like approving appointments of, for instance, Supreme Court judges and so on and so forth, they shouldn't just be by simple majority. I think they are very heavy issues, and we need to really get to a point where we require to test majority, which would mean that for some of these very important issues, you need about 206 members to vote to pass them. And in the history of our fourth republic, no party has ever had 206 members, which would mean that there would be a need for a lot of cooperation between the two sides, and then in that case, what we are going to see is that the interest of Ghana is going to take precedence over any parochial or party or individual interests.
Very well. Talking about heavy issues and your suggestion of a two-thirds majority, etc., coupled with the point you made about the legislators' dilemma, what then becomes the place of the whip system? Because we recall that on the dawn of January 7, one side was saying that what then becomes the essence of the whip system, if the three-line whip, as they call it, cannot be deployed to keep members in line to vote along a certain party line. Now we have a precedent. There is secret voting. Is that how it should continue? And then what then becomes of the whip system? What can they be doing now?
Well, I think the whips can continue to do their work, but I believe that our members should vote their conscience. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's not on every issue. I mean, let's agree that, look, I mean, most MPs go to Parliament on the platform of a political party. So there's that assumption that, I mean, they are going to be political in the way they look at issues. But I think that, at the end of the day, there will be instances when we should have very brave MPs who would say, on this matter, I am going to be with the people and not with the party, because the interest of the country takes precedence over the interest of any particular individual. I mean, as we saw, if what we are hearing is true, some MPs from the MPP side voted for Right Honourable Babin despite the deployment of the three-line whip. So the insistence on this secret ballot, I think a precedent has already been set. I hope that we are going to see a strict adherence to it. That will really help in terms of advancing our democracy and in terms of ensuring some serious oversight in the 8th Parliament.
Very well. Thanks so much. So I go to Franklin Cudjoe. Franklin, I mean, we're discussing the speech and the composition of committees in Parliament and whether it should be 50-50 as the Haruna Idrisu-led group is calling for. What is your take? Does it even matter at all?
Well, first of all, I think the speech, as I indicated a while back, was in its own class. If you thought that the Honourable Speaker had not done his own work well, you'd be telling an untruth. Of course, he related to some of his predecessors, and you could tell clearly that he was giving due praise where it mattered most, and I thought that was quite useful. His predecessor, though, Michael Quay, Reverend Michael Quay, Dr. Michael Quay, had talked about how to basically protect the assets of Parliament. I mean, he was interested in the fiscal structures as well as basically the comfort of parliamentarians, which was not a bad idea. Bagman, on the other hand, maybe given the given the nature of how our politics have turned out, was looking out for Parliament to be properly put at par with the other parties in the separation of powers, I mean the executive and the judiciary. His references to how the judiciary is ordered, his references to the conduct of the executive, only tell you that he's much interested in making sure that the structure of Parliament is respected as an equal player and an equal partner in delivering development to our people. And if we can get that done through Parliament, no matter the composition of the committees, because you see, the thing I suspect we should be minded may not necessarily be about the numbers per se, but the minds that come with those numbers. I mean, of what use is people sitting on committees and not necessarily making judicious use of that time and then contributing effectively? It's not everybody who gets to speak on the plenary, but it's important that the committee members themselves, however constituted, whether 70-30, 60-40, 55-55, or 50-50, must be bringing equal weight, not just by their presence as physical human beings, but also as their minds as well. And that's what I see. I mean, I was elated when Imani had the opportunity to meet two committees in Parliament last year, where we had just done an extensive cocoa report, and we met with the Finance Committee and the Committee on Cocoa, Agric, and something like that, Food Affairs. I mean, I was astounded, positively, and very happy that almost every member of the committee was seen actively engaging and making references and cross-checking some of the things we've come to say. And I was pleasantly happy. And I imagine that other committees may be of equal weight and equal interest as well. So for me, look, the Speaker of Parliament is looking like he's not even interested in wearing an ideological armor, body armor, because like I said a while back ago, people don't eat ideologies in this part of our world. People eat development, and they want to see development. Whatever can get us development is fine. Something that is not known about the gentleman, honorable gentleman, is also his frankness and his boldness. I'm not saying people don't know. A lot of people know. I mean, this is a man, when he was in Parliament, could say authoritatively that he and, well, of course, his colleagues, and that Parliament probably as a whole was corrupt. I don't know if you remember. I think there were calls to hound him before the Privileges Committee. And
that comment didn't have to come out. I mean, it was made in a certain context. But of course, the point was made.
But I'm only telling you that it's in his DNA not to shy away from saying the right things. And I recall the conversations about XTS as well. I recall that on one particular day, we had almost 4 interviews from morning to evening. By evening, that's just me and him on XTS, because if you recall, Imani was big on XTS. and he was Minister for Works and Housing. And then he brilliantly flipped and said, my brother, we'll see what can come out of this. But it's not easy at all. Which was an attestation to the fact that when executives dream of ideas, bigger and sometimes big ideas, as STS was, and then they send their agents, ministers to go on a fishing expedition, sometimes there's a point at which you really want to know whether what you've been asked to go and do is indeed fruitless or reasonable. Which is why my farmer writes on the speech and is essentially to say that, executive, you may be interested in developing faster than everybody else, but please be careful what you bring to Parliament, because I would ensure with the men and women I have, would ensure that we do not only scrutinize this deal, but ensure that it benefits everybody. He inspires a lot of confidence, and the eulogies would continue right after he's left office.
Very well. Like I was indicating to Dr. Dramani a while ago, he was not big on the happenings of the dawn of January 7, the ballot snatching, the box snatching, the invasion of soldiers of the hall or the chamber, etc. People think that a strong signal should be sent. Indeed, Parliament itself, in a statement, appeared to be saying that let's sweep it under the carpet, let's move on. Dr. Draman is also of the view that let's move on. What do you think? Do we investigate it or we should move on?
Well, first of all, like they say, when you exhibit your conduct in the open and you are chastised, as we did, everybody did in this country and across the world, I think that is quite enough punishment. Parliament itself had sort of tried to redeem its image by suggesting, you listen to both leaders, suggesting that, look, what happened was unsightly. We may want to go into it. I think the records should show, I think it was Dr. before who said that the records must show exactly what happened. Parliament is a master of its own laws, and they can decide that once the records are properly taken, they can decide what to do. But I would be ready to say, well, look, they themselves have one sack loose, and then we should, in supplication to the Almighty, forgive them 77 times, 7 times.
I see. Just quickly before we take a break, there's been the talk about consensus, compromises, etc. Do you think that the president should throw a few appointments to the NDC side, and should they also accept it? Just in 30 seconds.
I'm not actually taking my mind to the Amadou debacle. But the president was given some cold souring by some of his own people when they say, you see what we told you? Well, but first of all, Amadou was a class of his own. That should not inspire diffidence in the president from doing what is utmost and best. First of all, you may say that he should reach out only because the assumption is that he probably does not have the numbers now to select 50% of his ministers from Parliament. Well, I'm not entirely sure about that. But a few positions here and there, maybe Suini can go to head some boards and a few other places where he can make money so that he go and keep on sitting and So some conciliatory note, but you see, at the end of the day, I don't want us to see this just in the appointment of persons, but actually in the pronouncements and conduct of our leaders as well.
Very well, thank you so much. So we'll take a quick break. But your good friend, Dr. Kobo, who is joining the next panel, wants to find out whether you'll be applying to join the Supreme Court in the election petition too. That's on the lighter note.
Right. The Supreme Court doesn't like my faith. They don't like amicus.
We will submit an amicus brief on this one too.
But they'll do their own good job, I expect.
All right. So we'll take a quick break. We'll return with another part of the discussion, we'll briefly look at the Supreme Court and then delve into the bigger matter of the reopening of schools vis-a-vis where we stand at, in respect of COVID, etc. And Dr. Okoboy will be joining us. I need to take a break so maybe when we come back, I'll just. So we'll take a quick break and return with more. So Dr. Okoboy will join the panel after this break. Don't go away.
Lawful wedded wife to having to hold from this day forward?
I do.
I knew it.
How much drama can you enjoy? See it feely with HD Plus. Get the best companion for your HD TV with HD Plus. Dial *879# to activate and enjoy the first 2 months for free.
When the president ordered on March 16, 2020, that all schools go into lockdown, as it were, we all panicked at the spelling bee.
It taught me to be independent.
If it weren't coronavirus, I think I would not enroll myself in the spelling bee competition.
I coped very well, as I was still able to learn via e-learning on TV.
I've had the opportunity to learn a lot about how to work a computer and those type of things.
We couldn't see each other again. We couldn't do group activities. We couldn't, interact.
I was still able to be with a few of my friends, and we all adhered to the COVID-19 safety protocols.
You're welcome back to the big issue. We are live from our studios here at number 11, Dr. Martin Lupin Adabraka in Accra, Citi TV, and 97.3 Citi FM. We're moving on to the second and third matters. And my guests, Alasan Suini, Tamale North MP, and now we have Dr. Bernard Okoboy, former Deputy Health Minister and former MP for Lejo Kuku. So we will have some other guests on Zoom. Kofi Asare, Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, will be on Zoom. Dr. Enoch Jetua of the Ghana National Council of Private Schools will also be on Zoom. And Joseph Jamesi, National General Secretary of the Conference of Heads of Private Second Cycle Schools, CHOPS, will also be on Zoom. But that will be a bit later in the discussion. Now we want to quickly look at the Supreme Court and what happened there in the course of the week. We'll take just a few comments from my guests, and then we will move on to the schools discussion. So this is the big issue, 97.3 Citi FM and on Citi TV. Your comments are welcome via WhatsApp line 0549-986-996. In due course, I'll be reading some of your comments out. So the Supreme Court, I know you have a few points.
I just wanted to address the discussion that I think Dr. Dramani Franklin raised it. You raised it too, in relation to events of the dawn of 7th. And how it was not big on the speaker's speech, and also even in the speeches of both the leaders, of the House. We have to understand that at this stage, even if one wants something done about some of the infractions on the day, it will not be very appropriate. Because you need the committees to be set up first. That's how Parliament works.
Okay.
You need the committees to be set up, because if anybody raised it, for example, I mean, it's not as if we just decided to sweep it under the carpet and then ask for forgiveness or decide to forgive people 77 times like Franklin is suggesting. But it is because the timing isn't right to deal with those issues. So if you raised it yesterday, the Speaker, by the practice of Parliament, would have had to refer whatever is raised to an appropriate committee to look at it. So those committees haven't even been set up yet. And so perhaps it is too early. I'm not saying that it will be raised, but I'm also disabusing minds that seem to have been formed around the belief that we have swept everything under the carpet. No. Some of us feel very strongly about some of the things that happened on the 9th. And when it is time and appropriate for us to ask for, redress, or at least some investigation of a sort, to put our minds at ease, we will seek those directions from the Speaker. I still cringe, Selorm, every time when I close my eyes and imagine what could have happened on the 9th when the soldiers walked in. I cringe every time I see that picture in my mind. I mean, it was that dangerous, it was so reckless, and I don't think it should just go without an investigation. If for nothing at all, we must have an investigation to tell ourselves, what went wrong, how come it happened, and why it should never happen again. Never happen again. Because you see, Selorm, in this country, many security analysts have said that it will now be very difficult for a coup to take place because we no longer have a central broadcasting unit. Like it happened in the past, where the military will just seize the broadcasting unit and announce for the cooperation of all citizens that power had shifted. But Selorm, because it has passed, I think we can talk about it. At that point that the soldiers walked into Parliament, we had one place that all media was focused on.
The nation's attention was there.
The nation's attention was there. All media houses were broadcasting from there. The Chief Justice was there. The nation at that time was confused about the direction that this country was going to. And I am sure that many would have been disappointed in the politicians, because it was the politicians that at the time was struggling to find a direction for us all. And I had cause to speak with the defense minister yesterday, and I painted this picture that, look, we are lucky we're saved by grace. But fathom a situation where one of the soldiers was reckless and had his own plans and walked in, fired 3 gunshots in the air, got people scattered, and took hold of the opportunity that the media presented at the time to condemn the politicians who at that point had failed to show direction, and declared a takeover.
But the takeover is not just about the announcement. Other key installations were
Selorm, if at that point you don't know if somebody is planning that, it will not just be a happenstance. The person would have already had other contacts elsewhere. I'm saying it didn't happen, so we can imagine that, it is far-fetched.
Sure.
But let us not ignore that possibility, that some people could have been planning to do something, and this would have just been an opportunity handed them to address the nation and get the nation's support, get some of the unit support.
And what did the defense minister say? I mean, the caretaker minister, what did he say?
I mean, I don't think it is appropriate to discuss.
But did you have the indication that he was aware where the order came from?
Selorm, I don't think it's appropriate for me to go into the details of the discussion that we had. Yes, it was a private conversation we had. But I'm just saying that for me, every time I remember that night when the soldiers walked in, and I look at the possibility of how that could have led to a takeover, I cringe. And I say, if for nothing at all, there's a need for us as a house to review what happened that night and guide ourselves and people who will have the authority to deploy the military never to do what happened.
Very well.
You know, that night. But that will happen at the appropriate time.
Very well.
Perhaps when the committees are in place.
Very well. So we'll go to the Supreme Court. I know Dr. Koboy will be itching to say a few things. But
I have to say something small about.
Okay, so you were watching outside from Parliament, having been there for 4 years. So I just give you a minute.
The events after the declaration of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as the president on the 9th, events that followed, with press conferences at the NDC headquarters at Adabraka, claims that JM is the president-elect and that they've won more than 146 and all that. Those events, later, things that followed, especially when it showed at the Supreme Court, showed us that he was not the elect. They agree he's not the elect, and that he wants an opportunity to go for a second round. The point is that using force and aggression cannot guarantee the success or the expectations you want.
But what did they use force or they demonstrated?
Okay, all right. But the demonstrations came with events, unsightly events, burning of ties. There was some that suffered some. Some of their guys had some confrontations with the police and all that. It could have degenerated. The point is that the law, the due process, gives better results than what they resorted to. 6th of January, they showed up in Parliament hours before the midnight. They occupied the right side. They wanted to use unorthodox means to occupy the right side.
But what was wrong with that? At that moment, there was no majority.
The point is that the status quo before, this 8th Parliament, was that they were on the left side. If anything at all, the status quo should remain until the process has been activated.
Status quo, which means so, because you had 137, 137.
No, what you had, Haruna was sitting on the left. That's where he sits. What made him move from the left to the right?
Because there was no direction.
It was not an accident. It was planned. Of course, if it was not planned, you would have seen some on our side, some on the other. So the point is that they sat down and decided that we are going early to go and occupy the right. The lesson again that we've learned is that using unorthodox means or aggression or whatever cannot secure what you want. Today, they are sitting on the left. Is that not so? So the point I'm making is that I'm happy that as a country we've put together rules, laws, a framework that even with agitation and the noise, it brings you under control. And that is a greater good. Look, he talks about soldiers. There could have been a takeover. All kinds of, why are you in there?
But that's a genuine concern, isn't it?
Is that not what could have been? Speak to what happened. You have even gone to the next realm. Things that could have been, but did not happen. I am speaking about a colleague of yours physically going on a marshal, handling him to go down and all that. Is that part of what honorables do? Remember Rwanda, what happened there? It was not soldiers. They killed each other. A civilian can cause greater harm than even a soldier. Aggression from your own neighbor can lead to death. So my point is that let's be honest and frank individuals. Don't go to the soldier when you've not spoken about the civilian. I said Rwanda, they killed each other. It was not soldiers.
But what are you talking about? What are you saying about the soldiers' invasion of the hall? What are you saying about
that? I do not seek to glorify it. But why are we so much consumed with the soldiers and will not speak to what happened, what was executed or done by individuals? Have you not seen my brother Jinapo's actions? Did you witness it? Well, even if Carlos had done something unusual or wrong, is the approach to physically throw blows and hit him? Come on, these are things you must address your mind to. I'm saying this because if nobody had entered and both sides were using aggression, Selorm, do you know what could have happened? It's possible that no one would have gotten out of that chamber alive. Have you not thought about it? If they were using aggression to settle the issue in that chamber and they were left alone with the marshal, nobody entered, nobody tried to help to bring sanity. Are you aware that they are fiscal forces alone?
So are you justifying the coming of the military?
That's why I use an expression. I'm careful with my words. I say I do not seek to glorify what they did. But the point is that there were a sequence of events and it's unfair when you leave all those events.
But Parliament has its own way of dealing with it. There are marshal system. You know that there are marshals in Parliament which do.
Luckily, common sense is available to common people. It does not go necessarily complicated. When you put 4 or 5 people in a room and you are aware that they say they are masters of their own, but there is an issue where they are going at each other physically. Do you sit outside and say that they are masters of their own, only to open the door and realize that they are all not alive? That's not the way to go. So my point is that if you
let's make progress.
Yes, but
I thought he was against kudavs and imaginations, and then he goes with could you imagine what should have happened if it
let's go to the Supreme Court. So
we'll go to the Supreme Court.
The court is being paneled, presided over by the Chief Justice himself, 6 other justices. The first time we heard the application of the motion by John Mahama seeking to amend certain portions of his petition. The court has granted it. That should make your side happy.
Yes, I just wish to, like I always do. Yeah, I want to urge my brother. He's a likable character, but there are some things when you seek to justify them, you do not live up to expectation. I think that it is important that we all condemn the use of the military on that day. I have an old man who said when he saw the military in, his first reaction was, "Oh my God, not again," because he thought there was a takeover. That when he saw it on TV, that was his immediate reaction. Because you see, thankfully it wasn't, because people who have lived through takeovers, couldn't stand the sight of it. It was unsightly. So let's not belittle it by comparing it to
other events.
No, let's not belittle by comparing it to other events that we have seen in even established democracies where parliamentarians throw chairs at each other in defense of what they believe is right. I'm not saying it's normal, but let's not compare the two. Now the Supreme Court.
Just a few minutes on this. So
yes. I won't spend time. I mean, it's too early.
So and we are not seeking to argue or look at the merits of the matter. We are just seeing what
we are just happy. We are just happy. We are just happy that finally the process has started. The request to telecast it live has been granted. It is our expectation that as many people as possible who love democracy and love this country will make time to follow the events. And it is also our expectation that the justices will be patient with both, all sides, the Electoral Commission, the NDC, and the MPP, and diligently look at the evidence that they will all adduce before them, and in the end give a ruling that will enrich our democracy and clear the doubts that we all have about the outcome of the December 7 elections and the declaration that was done by the EC. Like our flag bearer said, there's a need for that doubt in our heads to be cleared. And the campaign manager of the New Patriotic Party agrees that there's doubt about the declaration that was done by the Electoral Commission by suggesting that even the NDC flag bearer or candidate did not get the numbers that the EC declared for him. So clearly, I think both the NPP and the NDC in this case agree that there is some doubt that has to be cleared. No question about that. And so it is our anticipation that the justices will listen carefully and with patience to all the lawyers from all the parties and arrive at a conclusion that will enrich our democracy and clear the doubts in our heads as far as the December elections is concerned. As a party, we are entitled to hope that the ruling will go in our favor and we'll have a rerun, and we pray that Almighty Allah will grant us that.
Very well. So good. So Honorable Kuboy, your side is seeking to short circuit the whole process by asking the court to dismiss the petition even before it starts. But generally, what's your comment on the whole election petition thing, the amendments, etc.?
He talks about doubts and all that, but my opinion is that the doubt is self-inflicted. I mean, the doubt is arising from maybe the shock of JM not winning the election and they living in denial, like you have sometimes in medicine where someone has a condition but will tell you, I don't have it, because they don't want to believe. It is also very strange that out of the 35 paragraphs or so that constitute the petition, that form the body of the petition, about 30 of those paragraphs have been dedicated to the mentioning of the figures and the fact that when you take the the figure attributed to valid votes and divide by the president's, numbers, you will not get 50%. When the response from the first respondent, which is the commission, has stated clearly that yes, that figure is actually supposed to have been total votes cast and not valid vote, because the total votes cast is bigger. And you don't need to attend pre-sec necessarily to know that when the denominator is big, it can drop the percentage that you get at the end of the day. So really, it's not complicated at all. It's just a matter of having, that's my opinion, someone who is shocked by the outcome of an election and had decided to go to court. What also is very intriguing is that the last time they were in court, it came out that even in putting together their petition, they made some very, very significant errors.
The Supreme Court said the errors were not significant, they were inconsequential generally.
Okay, my definition, the context with which I use significant is that if it was that innocuous, they wouldn't have really, that's what I'm saying, gone to go like, please, let's change it on record. Because if you go stricto sensu by what they wrote, even if they are granted a relief of a runoff, it will be between...
Yeah, but that was obviously
I get you. So. But you see, just as you say it's obvious and it's insignificant, so do I. We are speaking about what we think. So do I think the mention of a figure where I have, let's say, 51.2 on this document. I'm supposed to read it to the viewers, and I say 51.3, but the correct figure is on the paper. If a producer draws my attention that, Doc, what we gave you is not what you mentioned. In English, what's the word? I've misread what is on the paper. Is that not so? The last I mentioned to a friend, I think some have short memories. Do you remember that the last case, Supreme Court petition, the one that President Kufuor, then candidate, took to court, when the respected judge Atukuba read the voting pattern for the number, do you know that one was misread, and that I think the next day or so an official paper came from the Supreme Court to correct the figures? You think he intentionally did that? No, you are reading from a script, and because it's figures, sometimes anything can happen. So the point I'm making is that it's very good that our lawyer brought the attention of the judges that just as you have made errors that on the face of it can be dealt with, so should you have been more magnanimous when someone makes an error.
But the errors they claim went to the root of the matter, because they claim that if things were done well, the president, as we have him now, wouldn't have attained the 50% and over required by the Constitution to make him president.
In fact,
and their calculations seek to show, so of course, the court will determine whether these calculations are correct or not. But that is where they stand. They make claims of vote padding. They make claims of some improper computations, etc. And they say that when you put all these things together, it drops the president's 50% and over to below 50%. And that, by law, is a runoff. And they are seeking the court or praying the court to correct that and cause a rerun between the two candidates.
In fact, I was trying to get the exact paragraph where in our response, that's the second respondent's response, where we spoke about that calculation. But we use some words like mischievous, being mischievous and being deliberate in that claim. They are aware that when you use the total votes cast to divide the president's figure, because it's a bigger number, that's 13.43457. When you divide that with the president's figure of 6.730, that's when you get into the area where the figure you get can go below 50%. And yet, what has been, as we speak now, gazetted in terms of valid votes at the last election is not 30.4, although that she attributed that 30.434 to valid vote. The valid vote is 13.121, which is the figure you get when you deal with all the foundation documents referring to all police stations across Ghana. The 3,000 and what's the figure? The 38,622. So really, I am excited. I'm excited that the approach is not to contest the authenticity of the figure on a particular pink sheet at the polling station, let's say Lochukuku, where they will say that, look, at the coalition center, they wrote 1,000 votes for President Kufuor, but we have the foundation which shows that he had 200.
Yeah, but they've said some of the calculations.
Absolutely.
So that comes to the
if their claim was that we've added the disparities or discrepancies at 5,000 polling stations, and the difference we get.
The significance of that is that
absolutely.
But Amanda, who is the director of legal affairs of the NDC, says that we should wait until the people, their people start turning in the evidence or the pink sheet, etc. they have. So maybe let's hold our horses.
I agree.
And it's not an issue to be litigated in the media. And that is why some of these things.
Yes. We are not invited. We are not invited to respond. We are not invited.
Let's move on. You started that.
No, just a second. No.
You've had enough.
You see, just whatever we speak to. It's, let's say, I'm speaking to like the claims we made in our response.
Sure, you're not seeking.
As for it's in the bosom of the judges to decide.
That we know. All right, so we move on to the next discussion, which is the reopening of schools. Students across the country officially began school yesterday, especially those in the basic school. If you're a parent, let's know what your kids told you when they came back from school, etc. I'll start from you, Dr. Kobo. You were at the ministry, but are you a caretaker deputy minister, or there's nothing like that?
Nothing like that.
Nothing like that. You're just helping.
Yes.
Okay, very well. So you appear to have some inkling or some idea into what's happening. Tell us what's happening. What are the current figures? Why are we here? And what preparations have we made for the schools? I know you've been speaking to the education guys as well. Tell us exactly where we are as a people in respect to the reopening of schools and COVID numbers.
So it's true that we experienced some rise in the cases, especially from December, about third week in December, to even as we speak. Now, the last time I checked, as at 11th of January, the update, we had about 1,400 active cases. Look, 2-3 months before before Christmas, we had low cases. We even went about 300 cases, and then it started to go up. Just before Christmas, I think we were doing about 600 or so. When we entered the Christmas season, immediately we were doing about 900. It was staying around close to 1,000 to the Christmas, and then now it started to go up after the New Year. Selorm, I think what remains a fact or an observation we've made is that yes, there were a lot of crowds during the campaign time. Some were not wearing masks, or some will say, oh, don't even say some, say many or most. But the point is that the kind of cases we saw cannot be compared to the numbers we are seeing now. So obviously, we didn't see some significant outbreaks even after the campaign season. And we just looked at the situation compared to Christmas and realized that most of the activities that happened during the campaign were outdoor. And increasingly, the science is telling us that the risk of contracting the virus is high when you have a number of people in an enclosed space, like we have it here. So, assuming none of us were wearing a mask, within 15 minutes of interaction, the air that would have been going through this room would be the same air, more or less. And the more we speak and interact, the greater the concentration of the particles inside. So that we'll end up breathing, sharing the same particles. And that is the greatest risk. And we think that what happened at Christmas, where people were coming together, sharing long hours of contact. I think the duration of contact is also a significant thing. Meeting someone who is positive momentarily, the risk is not as great as sharing a conversation for an hour, two, and all that. So really, these are some of the observations we've made. Also significant is the issue of travelers. You know, when you check, out of the 1,400 active cases, as at 11th of January, 417 were positive cases trapped at Kotoka from the testing. Now, these 417 cases, like the president mentioned the last time, our amended protocols, they don't go home. They are under strict isolation by the state, so they don't mix with the population. But just like in every country, even if you test at the airports, once there's a global risk, there's a chance of 1 or 2 sleeping in. So a child who is 4 years, we don't test less than 5 because of, if you are less than 5 years, we don't test because of the trauma of the testing in kids. and most kids also do not normally go down on the average with the virus. So you can have a situation where a family comes in, the adults test, they are negative, but the child might be carrying the virus, and they are good carriers. Good because they are all well and hearty, but they mix with adults, they give it to them. So there's a chance of some slipping in, and we suspect that these ones that might have slipped in.
So you attribute the spike to the international travels?
The factor is key. You know, I remember when we started doing well, and I saw huge figures in Europe and America. I told most of my friends that once the figures go up in Europe and America, we are at risk. The reason is simple. It's an imported disease, and we're in a global world. So, look, some 10 cases that were caught up north first in Tamale, they all crossed the border. So when you are not airtight as a country, no matter, you know, we have presence, we've fortified our borders and all that. But the point is that once there's a greater risk in the outside world, Ghana is also at some risk. So travelers played a role. But you see, the travelers only introduce the virus, and then our activities and behavior then propagates the community spread. So I'm not also saying that it is solely the travelers. They only give you the seed, and then you, by your behavior. So really, what is happening now is that, yes, we've had some cases, like the Director General of Ghana Health Service said, occupancy of our treatment facilities some 4 months ago was close to zero. Sometimes you go to a treatment facility. In fact, we closed some of them. We closed UGMC. We closed down Freeform Boating's facility in Kumasi because there were no people there. But as we speak, it's gone up. It's gone to about 50% of some places, 60% of some places about even 70%. Now, the point I want to make is that this occurrence validates some of the claims I made some months ago. There were folks who were like, Doc, what if many people have gotten COVID from the campaign activities, but you don't know? I told them that if you look at the chain, from infection, when you get the virus, the last end is hospitalization. That's assuming you don't recover, you'll be brought to the hospital. So one of the ways to test a system and know whether they are under reporting or under testing is to go to your hospitals. So what is happening now is telling us that once there is significant spread, the hospitals will remind you that something is happening. And so we all agree that there's been community spread, there's been entry of the virus from outside, and fortunately for us, the factor which pushed this spike, which is the number of travels, fortunately for us, we are out of the festivities. Yes, people will be traveling and coming to Ghana, but it will not be in the numbers. And it will also not be for the purpose that the travelers came. I think it's also not about the numbers. I'm happy this just occurred to me. It's about the purpose of the travel. When someone is coming for holidays, when they enter your country, they want to start socializing. But if it's business, there's a likelihood that they will be restricted in their movements. And look, we all learn as we make progress. Before, the president in his last address said, once you test positive, the state handles you compulsorily. Remember, prior to that, when you test positive, if you have, you have no comorbidities, you look fine, no symptoms, you are normally asked, we inspect your accommodation, your facility, you are allowed to isolate at maybe your private.
But that was not effective.
The point I'm making is that because you are not like maybe Israel or other countries where you've put a monitor, like a band on the person, and can 24 hours tell that this guy is in this room or has stepped out, there is the likelihood that one person can sneak out, especially when they came purposely for holiday. And I had a rumor, I don't know how true, that someone came, was very well, he was told, look, you are COVID positive. He went to the house, he promised to isolate, and then their friends calling, So in managing a pandemic, and it's done in every country, that's what when you observe a trend that the measure is being abused, you fortify. So
now let's bring it home. So schools have reopened. Yes. That's a concern for many parents. They are happy schools are reopened. You made a point about concentration of particles in closed places. Fortunately, a lot of our schools are not under trees. Perhaps now, this will be one of the instances to be happy about schools under trees. But fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have instances where we have a lot of schools under trees. A lot of the schools, huge majority, are enclosed. What is government's plan? What are the measures put in place by government to ensure that should any of the kids or students have it, be it asymptomatic or not, given that they are in an enclosed space, this will not degenerate. the infection rate will not go up, or that person may not infect a lot of their colleagues?
There are two main things. Remember, we are still studying the virus. So most of the claims are hypothetical, not empirical, from established studies. But there are two observations that have been made strongly that facilitate spread and even intensity of disease. The first one being the temperature, cold climate. And that's why in most countries they predicted that they might have a second wave in the winter. The second one is an enclosed, if the structure of your community is the enclosed type, the rate of transmission is higher. And what do I mean by the closed type? If you go to Europe, most markets, if you want to go and buy, it's not open market like Agbopulation, Makola, where you are in. You go to an enclosed space. The gym, people are lifting weights in open. In Europe, you would have entered a closed space. Classrooms in Europe, you don't open windows. Most of the time, even in summer, you have it closed air conditioned. Luckily, our environment, even the classrooms you are talking about, most of our schools, how many schools in Ghana would be operating all windows closed air conditioned? That open door, window, the ventilation, it's a very good, how do you call it, occurrence for reducing risk of the virus. So just as we did as a country, when the students were going to write their final year for the SSCE, so what did we do as a country? We got the items you need to reduce your risk. And let me say here that nobody can give you zero risk. Selorm, there's no zero risk anywhere. Remember at the ICU, where people are being managed for COVID, you have health workers dressing, gowning from head to toe. But you can still pick across the world. You can pick cases gotten from such an environment where someone is totally enclosed. The point is that there's no zero risk. What you do is to put in place mechanisms to reduce your risk of getting a virus. And one of them is these Veronica buckets that we try to use with the soap and all that. Another one is a mask. Basically, the mask is the greatest asset. Because when you enter even a crowded place, enclosed, and your mask is on 24/7, your chance of picking the virus is low. Because their particles will never enter your nostrils. So government has made preparation to make sure that every student gets a mask. We've also encouraged parents, those who can afford or as a way of supporting the process, to make sure that when their kids leave home, they have access to masks.
So the government's supply of masks to the schools includes private schools?
Yes, absolutely. Just like we do.
So let's go on the line. We have 3 people on Zoom. We have Kofi Asare, Executive Director of Africa Education Watch. We have Enoch Jetua, who is the Ghana Association with the Ghana National Council of Private Schools, and Joseph Jamesi, National Secretary for the CHOPS, Conference of Heads of Private Second Cycle Schools. I'll come to you, Honorable. So let me start off with you, Enoch Jetua. The government person here, I can't say government official, but the former deputy minister here, who obviously has some insight into what government is doing, is telling us that all schools, including private schools, have been supplied with PPEs, masks, etc. What can you tell us? Have your members or your member schools received all these PPEs required for their students to start a school? Did you have them as of yesterday? And yesterday, did all your members ensure that all the students or kids were fully clothed in these apparel?
Okay. Yeah, good morning and thank you very much. And also good morning to other panel members and those who are the CEO, Honorable Kuboy, and then the Aruna also.
Yes,
with the private schools, since the COVID time, there has been some sort of collaboration between the private schools and the government in terms of fighting this COVID-19 spread. We know that our schools have been in shutdown for almost 10 months. And because of that, there has been some sort of support from the government in terms of the supply of the PPEs. As the president announced in his 21st address on COVID issues, he made it very clear that these private schools and the government schools will also be supported by the supply of the PPEs. As we speak today, yesterday we had a meeting with all the private schools members in the southern sector, meaning the 6 southern region, from Uti, Volta region, Eastern region, Greater Accra, Central and Western region in Accra here. And most confirmed that they have been called by their local government or authority, I mean the district assemblies and the municipal assemblies, to come and collect their PPEs. As we speak now, we can confirm to you that over 45% of the schools have received their PPEs. Others are yet to receive it. But on in terms of
about how many? Say that again. Did you say 55%? How many people?
I'm saying 45%.
45%.
The data we have.
Very well.
Yes, across the country. And our checks from the Ghana Education Service and the Ministry of Education also revealed that the PPEs has been dispatched to the regional offices. But there's a challenge in terms of the distribution, of which some of us made some comments on it during the time the government asked the Form 2s to resume school. Most of the PPEs are being dispatched to the regional centers, and this time is also weekend. So Monday, most of the schools may go to school, students may report to school, and they have to even queue in and get these PPEs, or they have to wait till their officers or the administrators of the schools travel from their villages to these centers to collect them. So we were of the view that if government can even, deploy a different strategy where the suppliers will earmark the locations of various schools and distribute it to them, rather than to encamp it at one center and then call for schools to come and take it. In this case, it will cause a lot of challenges and a lot of issues regarding the adherence of the COVID-19 protocols. Because Monday schools are resuming, and if the PPEs are being logged at the district assemblies or the regional centers, it has to have this kind of bureaucracy way of distribution that it has to go to the district. The district has to take invoice and stock of it before it reaches the various intended schools, which means that it can even travel for almost 1 week before the schools, get it. So in view of solving this as private schools, the arrangement that we have made is that each school has contacted their parents and they've made some provisions in such a way that as we are waiting for the government own, by the time the government own comes, we have already, the schools will be able to position themselves in supplying some sort of complementary ones to the schools, the students as well. So that is the side of the private schools. Yes, we have been confirmed that government is supplying with the PPEs, but it has been a delay in terms of the distribution. Thank you very much.
Very well. Thank you so much to Mr. Jetuya. I go to Mr. Jamesi, who is the National Secretary for CHOPS, the Conference of Heads of Private Second Cycle Schools. Hello, welcome to the program, Mr. Jamesi.
Thank you, Selorm.
Generally, your colleague from the National Council of Private Schools has made comments. He said about 45% of their members have received their PPE. That is quite, maybe that's not what he expects. We expected maybe a higher percentage. But is there anything extra you are doing apart from what government is doing to supply you with the PPEs to ensure that your students are safe, maybe until government's consignment of the PPE gets to you, and even beyond that? What have you as private school heads done to ensure that our kids who come to your school are very safe?
Thank you, Selorm. Good morning to you and good morning to all our panelists and all our listeners. Indeed, we believe that the collaboration that started with the government from when the final year students reported to school in July, August, and when the second year students reported to school in October will continue. As Enoch said, as far as the secondary schools are concerned, we cannot confirm that any secondary school as of yet has received their PPEs yet. What we can confirm is that all our schools have been fumigated and disinfected. That one we can confirm. But as far as the PPEs are concerned, I don't believe any secondary school has received any PPEs as of now. We are hopeful, by Monday or so, we should be getting the calls to come to the municipal offices and collect them. Now, in the meantime...
But in the meantime, what have you been told? What have you been told? Have you been told that the PPEs have been dispatched, or what have you been told before you start waiting for the real calls from the municipal or district assemblies or education offices?
well, I will not go as far as saying dispatched. We believe that we will receive it, and I think our checks with the ministry suggest that the same partnership that has started before, private schools generally will be included, and the fact that our schools have been fumigated credits and a clear indication that private senior high schools will not be left out. So we are just waiting patiently for government to supply it. Now, in the meantime, though, school starts on Monday, and students have to come to school prepared and protected. So we have reached out to all parents. We've instructed our schools to reach out to all parents to ensure that minimum 2 face masks or nose masks are provided to the kids with a hand sanitizer as they come to school. And our schools, because we have experience with this process, we handle the final years in the middle of COVID in July, August. So we have a lot of experience from the protocols that we followed from the gate as they arrive at the gate, the processes that we follow in checking their temperature, in following the protocols. We have all that experience to fall on. And therefore, we've instructed our schools to just implement those protocols to the T and ensure that as students come to the campus, they are safe. Luckily, when it comes to things like Veronica buckets and hand sanitizer, we do have some excesses. I mean, most schools have some excesses from those that were supplied during the October, December period when the second years were in school. So those are what we are going to be falling on now to ensure that students who come to school are protected. Now, we are educational administrators, and our job primarily is to protect our students. Whatever partnership we have with government, whatever government is providing, we very much appreciate. But as educational entrepreneurs, our job is to make sure our students are protected. And therefore, every headmaster, every director, proprietor understands that ultimately we have a responsibility in this. So all our schools, I'm pretty sure, will be very ready in terms of providing all the things that are necessary if government continues to delay in providing these items to us.
Very well. I recall that in the, was it July, August period that the final years went to school, there was a directive that the class sizes should reduce and the dormitories should be spaced out properly to ensure there was social distancing, etc. We've not heard much about that this time. How many students are we expecting in classes now that almost everybody, apart from the first year senior high school students, are yet to join? What is the situation in your schools?
Right. Well, you are 100% right. There's not been any directive as far as the number of students that are expected in the classroom during this COVID period. Now, in the private senior high schools, luckily, fortunately, unfortunately, I would say, we don't have too much a problem. Remember that over the last 2-3 years, we've had serious challenges in the private second cycles with low enrollment, mainly because of the free SHS and some of the policies that we've had to endure over the last few years. So generally, we've lost around 30-40% of enrollment across secondary schools in this country. Because of that, most schools have plenty of space to implement social distancing and ensure that students are safe in the classroom, in the dormitories. In addition to that, though, when it comes to areas of dining hall, with our directive, certainly is to ensure that there are some rotational processes involved, where we don't have the usual, 12, 14 on the table, but you have around 8 people on the table to ensure that students are not too close together. So those are internal measures that we are putting in place. But from the government, there has not been a directive as to the number of students that we can have in a classroom. But I don't think that will be too much a problem for many private senior high schools. The few that have large numbers, then certainly on our own, we have to apply the best measures possible. If possible, use our halls. In my school, for instance, for the larger classes, we plan to use our halls to make sure that we don't have too many students up together. If you have trees, this is a perfect time to actually implement classes under trees in some cases to ensure that students are safe. Anything we can do at this time to ensure students are safe, we have to make sure we get it done.
Very well. Let me bring in now Kofi Asare, who deals with things more often at the policy level, etc. Hi, Kofi. Good to have you. What do you make of government's preparation so far, and especially as your two colleagues have said? One says that just about 45% of their members have received a PPE. Mr. Jamesi, who just spoke, says that there's been delay and he can't confirm that any of his members have received it. What should we be doing? Schools reopened yesterday, but effectively on Monday. What should we be doing?
Well, unfortunately, we are not doing what we should be doing. We are not learning from the lessons of the past. We have still centralized the procurement of PPEs and consumables. We are still dropping them at the district education office and expecting school heads to travel from the communities to the district education office to pick them up when we know that there is no capitation grant, there's no money for transport. So the same factors that led to the delayed receipt of PPEs and other consumables still remain. And we are not expecting a different outcome. If you do the same thing over and over again, you will not get a different result. That's on the side of the PPEs. We have reviewed the guidelines that the GNS issued yesterday to guide school heads in managing the reopening process. To begin with, the guideline was issued too late, virtually on the day that school was supposed to have reopened. Yesterday, the guideline was issued. Comparing the guideline to the previous guideline that was issued in July, we realized that for some strange reasons, the Ghana Education Service has omitted the cap that it placed on the class size. In the July guideline, it was clear that a maximum of 30 students in junior high schools and maximum 25 in senior high schools. If you read page 3 of this guideline, it simply says that when school heads realize that their classes are unbearably high, quote unquote, unbearably high, they should contact the district director of education. It doesn't make any policy sense, because guidelines in themselves are meant to prevent the discretional abuse of regulations. So if you expect schools to conform to regulations as important as health and safety regulations, i.e. physical distancing regulations as prescribed by the World Health Organization, UNESCO, Ghana Health Service, and as adopted by the GES themselves in their previous reopening, we see no reason why the GES should water down on their earlier explicit cap on the number of students per class and simply replace it with something more discretional, suggesting that the GES is varying its position on physical distancing in the classroom. So these are the two observations we have made, that we are worried because the success we chalked in the reopening effort of July, August, especially in basic schools, was as a result of the compliance to physical distancing regulations of the Ghana Health Service and UNESCO and the World Health Organization. And so to the extent that the GES has indicated in this new guideline that it does not intend to go with the explicit cap of 30 per class, the average class size is 80 square meters. It seems to suggest that the GES is, in a way, ready to compromise on physical distancing, which is completely unacceptable. So we have asked the GES to come clear on that so that their employees would be properly guided.
Okay, so given that we don't have SHS1 students yet, can't we say that the spaces they occupied before could be used to spread the rest out so that there could be physical distancing?
No, there is no space in the basic school, because tomorrow Monday is my first day at school. So we are expecting about 800,000 more students to enroll in kindergarten 1. Exactly that cohort enters, everybody moves up, so there's no empty space.
All right. So thanks so much, Kofi Asare. Always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much. Let me return to the studio and then speak to the Honorable Alassane Suhuyini. He's not had a take on this. Yes, we've been hearing this and you've been following as well. You're a parent, etc. What do you think? Are we ready? Of course, it's not a question about saying are we ready. We are going. What should we be doing so that we don't get into trouble?
Well, Selorm, I think that it's important that we all understand the risk that we are faced with as far as the spread of COVID is concerned. The increasing numbers should not surprise anybody. We all know how we have collectively contributed to it. The statistics have gone from numbers to names, and from names to people we know. And so it is important, like I have said from the beginning, that we all take personal responsibility seriously. So even as we take our children back to school, it is important that we make our children understand what risk they are faced with as they step out, so that they can be conscious about the need to practice the protocols that will keep them safe. I have said consistently, and I'm not about to change my mind, that we have been saved by grace more than by the policy decisions that we have taken, especially in this part of the world, Africa and Ghana, to be specific. If you look at the death rate, we still seem to be recording the very low numbers compared to other continents. I mean, the last check, I think the World Health Organization Review 115, Africa had recorded just a little about 1,500 deaths, and followed by Asia with 3,900 plus. You know, so it tells you that there is something about our continent that those of us who are people of faith will attribute to God's grace.
And the figures are mentioned in respect of which, is it the second wave?
The second wave, yes, in respect of the second wave. That's the latest review by the World Health Organization, 115 review. So I'm saying that there's something that people of faith will attribute to the grace. And if you look at, you know, our policy directives, you are further, you know, convinced that, you know, it is more by grace than by practical, you know, action and decisions that we have taken. Look, our enforcements of the protocols that we have all identified can keep us safe is that lax. The Ghana Medical Association have had cause to even highlight that. We went to Parliament to pass, you know, regulations that we have not enforced in any way. You know, but we tick the box by the approach that our government, I think, seem to be looking at this. We tick the box by passing the regulations. You know, our facilities, we are told, are overstretched now. We seem to either be taking belated actions or just throwing good money, you know, at the problem, very good jargons at the problem, and our initiatives seem to be aimed at, you know, either before the elections vote buying, or after the elections and even during the elections making some party contractors rich. That's the mindset that I see, and I think that we have to move from it. For example, the report, I'll just share with you. I hope I can just put it out quickly. Yes, the official reports of the Ghana, the coronavirus disease COVID-19 situation report 115. Now there's this obsession with fumigation of schools, of markets, of roads. And the report says fumigation doesn't work. By the Zoom Lion or so. Now this report tells us that fumigation has no contribution whatsoever, you know, to the fight against this virus. And that's why I say some of the initiatives seem to just be aimed at making people rich. Very well. Because what is this, you know, you heard the schools. I mean, yeah, schools have been fumigated. Yet the World Health Organization tells us, and if you doubt it, because you are stretching to see, I can read the relevant portion. It says, we'll see it because you've named it, so we can look for it. I mean, the situation report 115. Fumigation really doesn't add anything. But go and find out how much we are expending as a country on that alone. So I'm saying that, look, we seem to be throwing good money are the problem, jargons are the problem, taking belated actions, and clearly I believe that personal responsibility must be taken seriously. And those of us who are people of faith continue to pray to God to continue to grant us that grace.
The assurance I want to give parents is that, like President said, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo said it last time, he will be the last person to put our kids in harm's way.
Very well.
And that parents should see themselves as partners to the fight, so that we don't sit back and go like, okay, let the president handle it. If you can get a mask, give it to your child. Spend some time to talk to your child what is happening in the world now, so that when they are playing, they avoid contact and all that. That is very important. And then secondly, I'm happy that the one gentleman mentioned that 45% of the items have come. It's an indication that we are spending on items that will help. As for these claims by Sweeney,
all right, so that's how we complete this edition of the program. It's been live from our studios at number 11, Dr. Martin Lupin at the Braka in Accra. Thanks to all our guests, about 10 of them who were present on this show today. My name is Selorm Adonoo. Thanks so much for spending your Saturday afternoons with us.